Hi, my name is Björn and this is a Houdini quadruped rigging tutorial. In this video we'll be focusing on capturing the geometry of the creature so that we can drive it with the rig we've created. Let's start out by capturing the eye geometry. Under the rigging tab you'll find the capture geometry tool. Let's use that with its default settings by harmonic capturing and append method. To capture the geometry, select the geometry of the eyes and hit enter. After that, you can select the chain of bones that you want to drive the geometry. I'm going to go ahead and select just the left eye bone and hit enter. With that done, when I move the eye controller we set up, we can see that the eye geometry is driven entirely by the left eye bone. If you double-click the eye geometry node, you'll find the network for the capturing. It's a range of nodes that Houdini set up when we did the capturing. To include missing bones into the capturing, we need to find the Bone Capture Lines node. In here, you'll find a list over the bones that are included in this capture. So to add the other eye bone, let's copy this line and change it to reference the right eye bone instead. Now all we need to do under Capture Options is to check off Use Capture Pose. And then to update the capture cache, go to the Stash node and click on Stash Input. Now Houdini will recalculate the influences in the capture, and now both eye bones should drive each a piece of the geometry. Now, to capture the rest of the creature. So selecting the capture tool again, we'll have different options as you saw before. We have the type, which is by default set to biharmonic. Biharmonic uses biharmonic distances to capture the weights. Proximity uses spatial distances to capture the weights, and regions uses the classic method of using the capture regions assigned to each bone. We'll go ahead and use biharmonic. It's good for capturing detailed characters, especially when proximity capture causes overlap problems. The method is used to specify whether you want to append or replace weights on the geometry. Finally, the select parameter is where you choose whether or not you want to select just the root of the chain you want to capture, or individual bones to capture to the geometry. By doing that you can select the main geometry, hit enter, and then select the world controller, and all bones under this hierarchy are going to be included in the new bind. Since our rig has a few elements that we don't want to include in the capture, it'll be better for us to not disconnect all these parts and simply use the different select method in the bind. So let's use the capture tool again, but this time set the select method to individual bones. Now we can choose the geometry of the creature, hit enter, and then we can go around and find the bones we want to include into our capture. That would be both of the front leg chains, the hind leg chains, the head, the tail, and the spine. Once you have all of the bones selected that you want to include in your capture, hit enter. Great! Now the creature is captured and the bones drive the geometry. There's one minor thing that we need to fix though. Because we set up our blend shapes before the capturing, you'll find that the capturing now overrides the blend shapes, so our face rig doesn't work anymore. To fix this, we need to go into the geometry node again to check out the hierarchy. In here we have our blend shapes happening before the biharmonic capturing, so we need to change the connections up a bit. To do that, go ahead and disconnect the blend shapes node from the main geometry. And let's move our capturing nodes a bit out of the way and disconnect them from the blend shape. Instead, connect the geometry directly up to the capture node, like so. Basically replace all the connections that the blend shape node has to the capture. Now the blend shapes need to evaluate after the capture and pipe into the deform node. So let's connect the last node of the capture up to the blend shape node and the blend shape node up to the deform node. We'll get an error starting at the blend shape node. That's because it doesn't know the input geometry. So go to the input operators list and drag the last input, the capture cache that we plugged in, to the top of the list. At this point, the node hierarchy should look a bit like this, with the capturing happening before the blend shapes. If we go back out and check, we should have both our blend shapes and our capture working at the same time. Now in areas where there's finer detail, like the mouth and toes and fingers, you might want to use the Paint Capture layer. With this tool, you can paint the areas you want influenced by certain bones. It's not very procedural, but it gives you nice control over details. Now we can start painting our capture influence. Hold down Shift and right mouse click to drag and change the size of the brush. If you right mouse click in the camera view, you can change the painting options for the tool. You can set your mouse click to act as a paint, a smooth, or a reduce. The smooth function is a good way to blend two harsh influences. So now I'll try to get the mouth to a good state with this tool. Now, some of your bones may have very similar colors. In this case here, both the head bone and the ear bone have the same red color. So to change that and to be able to distinguish the two influences, we can choose one of the bones and go to the Miscellaneous tab and change its color. Doing this will also change the appearance in the Paint Weights tool. Now it should be much easier to see and distinguish which areas are influenced by which bone, and we can continue working on the weights. Once you've created some weights on one side of the character that you like, you can go ahead and mirror those to the other side automatically. To do this, make sure that your geometry is selectable and go into the subnetwork. I'll make my capture layer paint node visible, and I'll select the Mirror Capture Weights tool. Now, Houdini is prompting us to select the destination points for the mirroring. I'll go into the front view and select the part of the cat that I'd like to change, and leaving the part of the cat that I'd like to keep out of the selection. Once done, hit enter. Now I need to select the bones that I want to mirror from, so typically that would be my character's screen right bones to mirror to the screen left bones, but I just want to mirror the head bone and the jawbone in the center of the character, so I'll select those two and hit enter. After that, Houdini will want me to select the bones that I want to copy the mirroring to. That would be the same bones since they're in the middle of the character, so I'll select the head bone and the jawbone again and hit enter. Now inside our character geometry node, we should be able to see our capture mirror node that's mirroring the capture for the bones that I specified. If we select the node, we can see all the points that we are applying this effect to, plus we can see the from bones and the to bones. These are basically the bones that we are mirroring from and the bones that we are mirroring to. On a side note, it's important that your blend shapes are evaluated as almost the last thing in the deformation chain. If you for instance have a capture layer paint sop placed after the blend shape node, then that would mean when the cat is animated, Houdini would have to recalculate the paint sop. Similarly, we can't have a mirror sop after any deforming node. That's because the mirror sop relies on symmetrical geometric points. So if we deform the creature and then apply capture mirror after the deformation, we're going to see capture errors and artifacts. So make sure that the blend shapes are evaluated as late as possible before the deformation sop. Now my character could use a bit of smoothing, but not lose volume. The tail is a good example of this. We see how there's a very harsh change from bone to bone in the weight influence. Now that's where the delta mush comes into the picture. If we click the delta mush and select the geometry or the points we want to affect and hit enter, we can see inside of our geometry node that a delta mush node has been added to the end of the hierarchy. In this node, we can change the step size and the amount of iterations. It evaluates really quickly, so it's a good node to apply on top of everything to smooth minor details and kinks out. Okay, that's some basic techniques for rigging in Houdini 16.5. Now you should be able to rig your own rigs using the tools and methods that we've gone through and expand upon that knowledge. For nice deformations, you might want to look into adding more bones to the character or even getting into muscle systems. You can also go ahead and add more blend shapes to fix poses that are not looking as they should, even with the capture editing. This rig is a good representation of what you should end up with starting out as a Houdini rigger. In the next video, we'll focus on creating a digital asset for this character to make it work better within a pipeline. So see you in the next video.